right. Okay, we're going to try this again because I could not find us. And then when I did find us, it said we were private. But then Deborah found us and said we were public. All right.
And there are three people, so hopefully they find us.
We are back.
It still says we're live, so I'm gonna leave it where it
Okay.
is and
Mine
see.
still says it's private, but if you can see it, then that's all that matters. Yes?
Yeah, well, let me see. Oh, something's happening here. That's not kosher.
All right. Well,
So I guess it might be just,
let's hope
I
we're
don't know.
here. I mean, oh, yes, I do see us now.
Yeah,
Okay, I found
there
us.
we
We're
are.
here. So we're just like talking to ourselves, just naturally.
So there we go. So what better way to talk about presence is to like not be present with the folks that are coming to be present with us.
It's so true. It's just like we needed to show you what we meant, right?
Yeah,
We needed an
yeah.
example. So
So
apologies for those who were watching for the few moments that because I cut us off and started again. We're back for Connection with Spirit. I'm Larissa Russell.
Deborah Epstein, and there's one person right now.
Nope, they're coming back. I see
Oh,
them. They're
they're
coming
coming back.
back.
I see them.
Okay,
I'm
yay.
here.
Misha,
Yay.
thank you.
Misha. Yeah. So
All right, we'll try this again.
one of the things that we were talking about last week when we met, it feels like it's been like 3 weeks, but time is being very funny these days. Um, we were talking about, I was talking to someone who watches us all the time, and she says, oh yeah, I don't respond in the chat because I'm busy working on a painting and I'm just kind of have you guys talking. And I love you guys talking. So we started talking about that and like, yeah, let's just invite you guys to work, doodle while you're listening, work on a painting that you may be working on, or, start something new, journal, like whatever this makes you think of. And if you want to pop something into the chat, we love that too. So,
Yes,
um,
but we'll stop harassing you for comments because we know you might be busy. Yes, yes. All
yeah.
right. Well, now that we're physically present on YouTube and we know we're here, we can talk about presence. And yes, and I was just saying, which you might see the couple of minutes, that I wasn't too sure if either of us were completely present in today, but it has been deemed that we are present. I might be in a bit of a brain fog with the time change. Deborah, you were lucky not to have a time change today.
Hmm.
Yeah, it throws me for a loop. Throws me
Yeah.
for a loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does everybody. Everybody's a little off their game, but yeah, we really want to kind of unpack presence and what does it mean. And like one of the things what I notice from the work that I do too is that when you I want to say call somebody out, when you bring someone's attention to the fact they may not be in their body, because in order to heal, you have to be in your body. You have to be connected to what's going on in your body. But there are times where during a treatment, I'm going to speak just about being treated in a hands-on sort of way, where you start to drift.
Mhm.
And then as a therapist, it's like I feel when the person goes out. It's almost like the way it feels to me, like a vacancy, like there's a vacant building. And so sometimes you do need to go out to connect with a part of yourself that may be floating out there in space, and then you can gently guide yourself back. The reason that we don't want to always come back, because when we start to come back, that part of us that left has to feel whatever it was that made you leave in the first place. And that does take a lot of work. And
Mhm.
so, but you want that piece back, that soul piece back,
Yeah.
because it's part of what gives you your livelihood. It's your intelligence, your feeling intelligence. It's part of your health system. And the more pieces of you that are scattered out there, the more chaos that's in your field, the harder it is for us to focus. And the more, it's like I was telling Larissa, like in early on in my journey, I just could never sit still.
Mhm.
I would always be bouncing around and like fidgeting and stuff like that. And the more I work I did and the more I connected with those pieces of me that were all over the place, the more I became a lot more organized as a system. And I became, had better ability to focus, better ability to sit still, better ability to be present and grounded and centered. It's like it's effortless for me to do that at this point. And so there's different, I think we want to talk about presence from all these different avenues. Is it okay to check out? I have one teacher that says sometimes you got to check out to check back in, you know? So
Yeah, there's something to that.
yeah, I think we can look at that, making things wrong, you know, where do we make ourselves wrong when we're having a certain experience?
Well, and just to that note, I think, trauma is, I think of past traumas and how I disassociated, right? So I checked out. I wasn't present for certain traumas that happened. And as I've tried to reintegrate, as I have been reintegrating, maybe not trying, but been reintegrating those pieces of me, yeah, you have to feel all the feels, and it is really uncomfortable. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was a safety mechanism that I had when I was younger to check out. And then as a conscious adult, working to reintegrate, there's only so far you can go at any one time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a lot. It's a lot. And then there's also just those times when it's like I get completely overstimulated, being neurodiverse and all of that. And it's like, yeah, I need to check out. I just need to like settle, which is
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's not a checkout. Like maybe there's different levels of checkout because it's like
Mm-hmm.
I just go inward and I just have to
Mm-hmm.
sit in instead of out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm not as vacant as I would be with a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, levels of
Yeah.
checking
Yeah,
out.
because yeah, traumatic disassociation is a totally different thing. It's like
Mm,
if you're not guided, by either
mm,
somebody that knows how to do that hands-on or shamanically. And I'm sure there's other methods too. I've only been exposed to what's
mm.
helped me. So I
Yeah.
can't really speak into those other modalities that can help, So I am going to be biased when I speak, but I also know there's other ways, other avenues in.
Mhm.
So I can only speak from my own experience. But disassociation due to trauma is a perfectly normal thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. Is actually it benefits us because your brain can't handle the amount of energy and trauma that happens in,
Mhm.
let's say, just a fall, not to mention if it's a beating or an attack or whatever. That's to save your life. that is
Mhm.
that is a mechanism to save your life. The thing where we go off as human beings is we don't see ourselves as natural organic matter that is part of a whole earth system. We have this degree of separate that we somehow started thinking of ourselves as mechanical parts and pieces. And we forgot about the organism, we forgot about the energy, we forgot about ourselves, the soul expressing in a human organism, an organism
Mhm.
that's interconnected and interwoven into the world in which we live. So we started to treat ourselves differently than the rest of the animal world. So we don't allow ourselves to shake off energy, to unwind, to allow that reintegration process to happen, which
Mhm.
is the healing process after a traumatic event, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. We've actually been talking about this past week because we're doing an embodiment challenge at Creative You on the healing side and the business side. We're combining and we're doing an embodiment challenge. And one of the things we have been talking about is this shaking off, right?
Mm-hmm,
Because we're the only animal that doesn't do that, that doesn't shake off the trauma
mm-hmm,
and allowing that energy. But then how also do we release the energy that is already stored in our body? Because
mm-hmm,
until we release that energy that's stored in our body, how can we move forward? Like we can think it all we want,
Right.
right? We can rationalize and do all the things, but until we release it from our body, it's still there with us, and it's still
Yeah.
going to come back, and it's still going to come back. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it
so
has to be an experience. You have to re-experience it. And it's not re-traumatizing. I remember like back when I was learning how to support people through this, that there was people in the class that were, because their training was more from a psychological background. So
mhm,
there's this whole idea of re-traumatizing. Well, if you feel it again, then you're re-traumatizing. Well, what's different about it is you're in a safe environment. You're going in with the purpose and the intention to allow the energy to move. And
mhm,
I've experienced times where you can move through several traumas at one time, and it's almost like you're flipping through a deck of cards. You'll experience whatever memory that's there. It's almost like someone just like flip through the cards,
mhm,
because a lot of times your traumas are related. It's all about learning a lesson. When things
mhm.
happen, it's
So when you
part
get
of
to
a
the root of
greater.
that pattern,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all like, oh my gosh, this trauma, they were all related. I mean, I have a ton of traumas that are all around my mouth, you know. And when
mhm,
the biggest message I got when I was a little kid was, you better shut up, you better shut up. And you
yeah,
don't have a voice, and you're this, you have no, you have
all
nothing. So
that
it's like,
be seen and not heard.
be seen and not
Yes.
heard. And so, like, isn't it interesting that like a lot of my traumas were falling on my face, putting my top lip through my bottom teeth, dislocating my jaw, that kind of stuff. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my God, the metaphor of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that all came up related, like when I was doing the bulk of my healing work. I did a lot of artwork around that too. And I would draw images of like a steel plate across, my mouth, not necessarily me, but it was
Mhm,
like the images I was drawing were very much related to a belief system around that I'm not allowed to be heard, not allowed to speak out. I'm to sit there silently and take it and suffer.
mhm,
And so it was really interesting to me that how eye-opening my traumas as a child, once I got to an adult and could process through them and could gain understanding through art, through writing, and through moving the energy through body work, and also shamanic journeying too,
mhm.
was a big piece of what helped me go deeper into that. And it's not to say that I never have jaw pain again. I do, because I have, I have things now that make me clench my jaw. So we still have habits of like, when I hold back in saying something, you know,
Mhm.
I don't feel like we're ever completely healed of our behaviors that create these tensions in our body, because it's a work in progress. We live in a world where women are still, in a lot of cases, not allowed to speak up. I mean, I have one family member that, like, I actually battle now that I never would ever stand up to in my past, that they still make me clench my jaw with some anger because I have to hold back some of it. But it's always letting myself release it in a more productive way. So I'm not
Mhm.
throwing my anger at another person. But we're all works in progress. No one's perfect.
Oh, no. I always say like if we have nothing to work on, why are we here? So we're
Hmm.
here to do the work, and so if you're so perfect, then off you go. On
Yeah.
to the next one.
Yeah, we got a new assignment for you.
So it's just like as long as I keep working on things, I'll stay. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
stay here.
And I
Yeah.
think you can really, like, as a soul, I think when you really start to move those earlier traumas and you start to get them, um so they're not running anymore,
Yeah.
that you can really start to, that's, I think, where co-creation starts coming in, because now you are bringing more of your soul into your human experience, and you're starting to really realize who you really are. You're not just this personality walking around getting beaten up all the time. and that my life sucks and I might as well, whatever, hide, not do anything and just hide or suffer or whatever,
Hmm.
that you start to engage in life in a different way. And that's presence in life in a different way too, you know?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And yeah, when you're actively participating in your life as opposed to letting life happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being fully present in your life. And is it 100% of the time? I doubt it. But the more time we can spend present in our life, I think the happier we'll be, but also the more in alignment we'll be. I think you have to be in alignment to be more present in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be following what's set out for you, or you're not going to be able to be present
Yeah.
100% or the majority of the time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. And also want to say too that if you're even if you're totally present 100% in your life, I was going to say, well, maybe you're never 100% present, but as much as you
No.
can be, let's put it
Yeah.
that way. Maybe it's not good to put degrees on things, but as much as you can be, you can still be out of alignment in your life. And it's not because you're not present in your life. It's because maybe there's something that's happening in your life that your spidey senses are picking up and you need to go in a different direction. And maybe you need to, stop doing XYZ and start doing, PFD and
But
you're
isn't that being
afraid.
present?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
maybe it's more of a fear and not a lack of presence in your life, that
Mm.
you're choosing without really knowing you're choosing fear because you're afraid of making that next step. And so that knocks you out of alignment in your life and things start to become hard and why is this always going sideways? And, that kind of stuff. It's not as cut and dried as, being present. And this is why this is happening. I'm not present in my life. No, it might be you're just afraid of making that next step. Change is
Yes.
hard, change is really hard, especially if you are being guided by your higher self to go in another direction than what feels comfortable, you know? And
Yeah, I mean that's very true that the cognitive is going to jump in there. That protection system, right? The
mhm,
survival, the masculine energy is going to jump in and go, no, we're going to die because it doesn't
mhm,
know the difference between stepping in front of a bus or trying something new. It doesn't know the difference, so we're going to die. And we're not going to die just because we try something new. And yes, so then fear take but I do think that if you're a present and you are so the presence is an awareness,
mhm,
then if you are in awareness of that's what's happening, and you know that spirit is leading you in this direction, divine, God, energy, intuition, whatever we want to call it, is leading you in this direction, and you're afraid, and you know that that's the cognitive,
mhm,
then if you are present with that, you're present with that awareness, then you're still going to go towards what fear is telling you not to go towards because it's in alignment.
mhm.
Does that seem? I think
Yeah,
we're saying the same thing, but differently is what we're doing.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
different way of, yeah, yeah, a different way of saying it. And I think too that like there's nuances to that because I think in that scenario that we're talking about, where it feels like, oh, nothing is aligned anymore, or I'm out of alignment, blah, blah, blah. There's a, I'll not swear, there's a whole lot of lessons and deepening of lessons, or experiential like openings, healings that can happen on that journey of coming into a new alignment, into a different alignment. And yeah, there is presence in all of that. But I think what I was saying is like you can easily check out of a situation like that, where you could, it's just like blaming, we don't want to blame I'm not present in my life because I'm having this
Hmm.
misalignment experience,
Yes.
that it could be something else, other than, I'm just simply not in my body. Um, but I think too, like, I'd love to hear if you guys feel like if you want to drop your pencils or maybe doodle something about this or go a little deeper into this is where do I notice? What sort of things am I doing? What sort of situations I'm in when I check out? Are you aware of certain times or experiences that you always are checked out? We talked about driving as, as one of
Mhm.
those examples, like how you can easily check
Especially
out
when
while
you do
you're
point A to
driving.
point B repetitively,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, I have no idea how I got here today.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't it amazing? My car knows how to get here.
Yes, it just found its way. It stopped at all the lights. It did,
Yeah.
yeah,
How
all
did
of
we
those
get here
things.
already? Did we go like, I don't know. That's what's so magical to me about the subconscious mind is that it's things that we do that are embodied, like we know them on the physical body level, like driving to a certain location, or even like, walking could be something like that. Like you can absent-mindedly do things. And,
Walking's a
and
perfect example because if we had to pay
yeah,
attention to everything we had to do to walk across a room, it would take us
I
all day
say
to
that all
get
the
there,
time.
right? We
Yeah,
do that unconsciously. We're
yep,
not conscious of the walk across the room
yep,
because we would have to be okay, like move this foot and then oh, this muscle now needs to be engaged and now, oh, make sure you're balanced and all
hmm
the pieces. And if we had to do that, it would be, you know, it would stop us from doing anything else because it's just like overwhelming with the amount of things you have to think about to walk across a room.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
I
perfect.
use that all the time. That exact example, I use that all the
That's
time.
probably where I
And
got it.
that one and the riding the bike one, because things like it's that embodied experience of feeling gravity, right? You
Mhm.
have to have the experience of it. So that's why I don't say it's bad when we check out or that we leave our body, because we have to have that experience to know what it's like, but we also get to have the opposite experience of being in. And when we were talking about this last week, I think we were talking about
Mhm.
how vast our soul is, that it's so multidimensional, and if you adhere to that, or if you've read anything about it, that we're having multiple experiences in multiple dimensions all at the same time. Everything's happening right now. So that kind of takes
No
us
wonder
in a
I'm tired at
different
the end of the
direction.
day.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I'm so tired. I got all my other selves doing all these things, on all these different levels. But we're
Mhm.
totally unaware of it, because just imagine if you had access to that information. First of
No.
all, it would fry your human circuitry, because we're so programmed for a linear world that, like, this information about being multidimensional is just now in consciousness starting to unfold, where we're starting to go, oh yeah, multidimensionality, yeah, I think I can understand this, right?
Mhm.
It's been in our scientific world and the quantum physics world, where they were, talking about for years and years and years. But now it's starting to become mainstream to talk about multidimensionality, which to me is fascinating. So I
Mhm.
I really feel like it frees us up to talk about these things and expand into them a little bit more. And it's those altered states of consciousness that we go into when we heal, that we start to realize, like, wow, there is more to life than just this linear experience. And then I start to ask this question about, well, presence, can presence be beyond the linear experience, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's the place where I think you have to go inward to experience
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And that's the journey work that we do. That's, sometimes meditation, things like that, where you can experience beyond this linear world,
Yeah.
this linear
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Altered states of consciousness. And um that's what's interesting, because, like, I remember when I first started delving into this arena of healing and energy work and all that kind of stuff, and hearing someone say there is no out there, and how like that, just that saying got me thinking about a lot of different things. Like, wow, there's no out there. Everything out there is in here, and everything in here is happening all at once. Like, man, what a mind-blowing concept. It's a totally mind-blowing concept to think
Mm-hmm.
that everything outside of you that we're so invested in, that it's really, it's all in here, and that out there is the illusion, right? And it's like, how can this be an illusion? What do they really mean by that? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where our little brains get fried,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because it's like you can just spin yourself into, but it fascinates me as science starts to explore these things that many of us new age, that's what I was called, or my mom was called when I was growing up, right? New age. Uh,
Yeah.
those of us who explore beyond what uh, the linear world has seen as possible. And now
Mm-hmm.
science is starting to go, oh, wait a second, they might be onto something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that I love that part of it where where those who know and are connected are like, well, of course, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when you have so many people in the world telling you that you might be not quite right, and then all of a sudden the scientists come in and go, no, they might actually be right. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. I
Yeah.
just have to say, I love that kind of validation
Mm-hmm.
because this has been my whole life, right? I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in that home that everybody was like, well, they think, weird things. They think weird things. And so I just love the validation of it. But yes, it,
Mm-hmm.
as we are open to the infinite possibilities that are available to us. I think about the mist, you were telling the story about the um the soul and all the alternate, all of that. Anyways, as you were telling that, I was thinking about the missing keys. And I'd had this conversation with my good friend Cricket years ago, and she was a shamanic practitioner as well. And I studied under her for years. And the missing keys and how they're right there, right? They're right there.
Mm-hmm.
You left them there, but they're not there. And everybody's looking for them. They're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after everybody's like settled and gone to do something else and they come back and now they're right there. And
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's like, no, you just put them there. Like, no, they were there. And then they got misplaced in all of the shifting, and then they got shifted back. And that happens. I think there's this glitch in the matrix that happens more often than we realize because of all the connections, right? Our brain is not able to um, figure out all the pieces, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more going on than we're aware of. So much more
Mm-hmm.
than what we're
Mm-hmm.
aware of.
Yeah. 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 That's why I think like presencing, like the act of being present with yourself is like the meditative state, not the kind where you're transcending your body and floating out in the ethers. It's the kind that you go deeper in.
Mm-hmm.
You start with the feels, you start with the heartbeat, you start with the breath, you start with the, working the musculature around each chakra and move up and really start to come into presence with your body and then journey from the inside, into that inner world where you find yourself, you presence with yourself. That becomes a practice as well. The more you do that, the easier it gets to kind of bring yourself back when you notice you've drifted out. There's also, a practice where you go in, and from the inside expand out. So you're feeling both, so that you're getting past the programming of separate,
Mm-hmm.
where you're moving into now, well, everything's interwoven, interconnected, and I'm a thread in the grand tapestry, that we call the universe, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all these individual threads coming together to form, a bigger tapestry or maybe even a bigger thread, like how that happens with thread. It's like not just like one little piece of thread. Sometimes it's several threads
Any.
or a rope or
Hmm.
many threads together to
Yeah.
make a bigger thread. That's a bigger thread. That's a bigger thread. That's a bigger thread. That's a bigger tapestry, because we have no idea how vast, we really have no idea how vast
Yeah.
the universe is, universe upon universe, even, you know. And so
Yeah.
when we start talking like this about how vast everything is, I go, oh yeah, that thing I was worried about this morning, that little minuscule like thing is like non-existent now, right? So it gives us a different perspective, on that thing that we think is plaguing us, that won't go away, or that we're really working hard to resist on, which you feel in your body. It creates something in your body when you emotionally or mentally resist something. Your body goes into resistance too. It
Oh
can't
yeah.
not. It's all connected. We just get like, wow, how is that? How does it play out in my body? I don't get that, but it's all connected. So yes, it does get played. This is a reflection of your mind. It's a creation of your mind. Everything you see around you is a
And that's
creation
where
of
it
your
gets
mind.
trapped is in the body, right? And that's why we
Yeah.
can think our way out of things, right? We can think, and be
Or
logical
do
and
we?
like, right? It's true. But that whole logic that we use to, talk ourselves or shame ourselves with
Mhm,
logic, but
mhm.
it's trapped in the body. And so
Yeah.
until we move it through the body, it's still going to be trapped there. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and recognizing the connection because we live so much in our head in this world,
Yeah.
right? We are taught to do everything from the head, and you have to be smart and you have to think through it and you have to pay attention, like all of these things that we're taught about coming from this place of the cognitive, the brain versus the non-cognitive, the body.
Mhm,
And the body remembers. Is that a book?
mhm.
I feel like that's a book. The body remembers.
The
Yeah.
body keeps score.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
It's very close, though.
Yes. But it does. It remembers
Yeah.
that. And so until you move it through the body, and that's
Mhm.
why these body practices work, right? The body work
Yeah.
that you do
Yeah.
and and and
Yeah,
different
it's just
things like
think
that. Yeah.
your thoughts are, and your brain is like a smaller portion of the pie. It's really the process. Your memories aren't stored in your physical matter. Your memories are stored in energy, and
Yes.
your body is the organism that moves according to the energy. It's always energy first. It's energy before matter. Because your body's an organism, it forms itself around your belief systems, and it works to move you through the body. So when you start changing the mind, so when you go in and start having these experiences and you start changing the mind, you start changing the patterns of belief, your body has to change too,
Hmm.
because your walk is different now. So sometimes we glitch a little too because we're holding physically something and moving according to an old pattern where you've created a new pattern in your energy field and in your mind. So there's that also can create a little bit of chaos and a little bit of havoc. So that's why I always recommend getting body work when you're doing any kind of shamanic work, any kind of energy work, because there's the physical touch that helps move the energy, melt the tissues and move the energy through. It changes the neuronal patterning.
Hmm.
Um, in the neurology too, because everything is interwoven together. It's not just like working on one thing will only be working on that thing. It's like if you're working on one thing, you're working on everything, you know, you
Hmm.
can't not. So that's why you'll never figure it out. That's why a surgery is not going to help it, you know, or this magical pill that's going to make something go away. If
Hmm.
we started to look at the things in our lives that we're resisting as maybe getting a little bit more curious about it, maybe becoming a little bit more present in it and being in curiosity and going, gee, why is this here?
Hmm.
Why is this, instead of making yourself wrong because it's here,
Hmm.
like, oh, why did I create this? I must be a jerk, whatever, right? It's like, what went wrong, or maybe you'll not have that answer. But if you just the
What is it trying to
relaxing,
tell me?
yeah, just the
Because it's there for a
relaxing
reason.
around that you noticed it, congratulate yourself. like this thing that's in my life that's not working right now that I am now noticing is pretty big. I'm going to be more congratulating myself that I noticed that it's there, because that's the first layer of easing up off of it, you know, is,
Mm.
because we're so good at making everything we do wrong or bad. If we don't like it, if it didn't work out right, we're horrible people or whatever. And it's
We've been
like, no,
taught
you're
that though.
human. Yes, I know. I know. I know. But it takes work to get to that. That's a practice as well,
Mm.
where you're not making yourself wrong for, making a mistake, And I know, like, when we're little, it's sometimes life or death if you make the wrong move. Because I can remember, like, in my life, it was like I felt like through most of my young adult life, like my body was so tense because I was always walking on eggshells because I didn't know who I was gonna offend, or I didn't know who I was gonna
Yeah.
upset. And you do hold that pattern in your body because you're moving really, like, cautiously, because simply your existence can set somebody off, and we're always trying not to do that, right? And now we're going into codependency, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh, yes, which yeah. This morning in our embodiment challenge, that was one of the things that came to me was the fact that I was literally at birth already looking after and making sure other people were, because it was like I didn't make too much of a fuss. I didn't, you know, I wasn't a crier. I wasn't like right from birth. I was like
hmm
in that energy of, oh, I have to be careful. I have to be
hmm
careful, right? I have to
yeah,
make sure that they're taken care of because, and so breaking that, woo, that's deep.
hmm
That's deep,
yeah.
right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about when we're born into a family. The family, how does that go? Is every person is born into a different family in the same family. Because
Mm-hmm,
let's say you had an older sibling. Well, that experience of that child it's just mom and dad and me. The next
mm-hmm,
kid that comes in, it's mom, dad, and the sibling. The next kid that comes in, it's like I get born into a family of four. So everybody has a different experience of being
mm-hmm.
born into a family. And there's already an energetic pattern set up in that family that you're going to want to fit into somehow. Right. And so it's so fascinating how energetically we start to form these patterns, and we're not conscious of it yet because we don't have a linear mind, so we're
Mm-hmm.
just in that response, we're in that
Just in the
purity.
energy of it.
Yeah, we're in that purity of our soul and the period of this experience, you know
Yeah.
so yeah, it's so fascinating how those things can be like pre-birth, yeah, pre-verbal, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, science is catching up on the energy in the womb, right? Like when the baby is growing and it's like that energy of what's happening around the mother is
Mhm.
very much. And then I've more recently even heard as far back as like the father before the sperm even comes in. So it's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that, you come into this world with.
hmm
You're just like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I like listening to Robert Ohado, and I was taking a class with him, and it was, what was it? Your intuitive, I think it was like about intuitive adults. It's all based on archetypal work. And, he was talking about how it was bringing our archetypes into more of a cosmic kind of archetypal pattern. And I
Hmm.
really, like, I listened to him talking, I have my eyes closed, and I started visualizing, like, my soul coming in and having to come into all this different, like, I just saw them as like designs, like patterns
Hmm.
that I could run my energy through. And because there's the ancestral stuff, there's the stuff of the world, like the cultural, how I'm supposed to behave as a woman in this culture, in this time, and it's in order, it's survival in a sense, right? Because, like, imagine if you didn't have, like, that imprinting of your culture, imprinting of your ancestry. And a lot of those ancestral imprints or patterns that we have, were born in a time that life was very different. So they don't work anymore. That's the whole basis of the work of family constellation work, And if you guys are interested in that, there's a really great book called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wallen. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. That's why I say, like, the pathway I took
Mm-hmm.
to get more into my body and release the traumas and energies was just one way to get there. There's so many different ways and there's so many different modalities, but I think it's time we start really, like, as practitioners, talking about it, practicing it, helping others to see the potential they have
Mm.
of healing on that level. I don't like the word healing as much anymore because I feel it's more of a transformational process, that it's in evolution, that it's not healing. I just think in our world or our culture, healing feels like it's a linear process that, like, I went in to see my practitioner. I went in through this linear experience and I came out, everything is perfect and healthy and gone. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like we work on our health all the time. It's something that we do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't exercise just once. You can't stretch just once. You can't eat just one healthy meal or drink one glass of water and call it done, right?
That's the problem. Damn.
Yeah, I drank that water one time and it was really awesome.
I ate a vegetable. What? Why am I not better?
I
Yes.
took that vitamin.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like, it's so funny. We know, like, when we really think about it, we know, but yet there's this part of us that has this expectation that I should be done with this by now. And it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pressure to put on somebody or yourself. And it's making me think of a story. When I was, in my training, I was at a seminar and I went up to be the demo for a certain technique. And I working with John Barnes in a big room is very, I wouldn't say intimidating, but it's very intense because you have the energy of the group and he really knows how to work energy. And it just felt like 1,000 bolts of lightning went through my body. And my body just, like, lit up, started shaking, doing all this kind of stuff. Now I've been doing this work for a little bit of time. So after I was done doing whatever I was doing, um, somebody in the audience, he opened the audience for questions, and somebody said, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said, at the time it was probably like 5 years or so. And they were like, "Well, how come you're not healed yet?" And I was like, it threw me into this, like, oh my God, she's right. Like, why am I not healed? Like, I went into that whole thing. But John,
Mm-hmm.
without missing a beat, said, do you ever have sex? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, do you ever do that one time? So his point was that, like, you know, you don't do anything one time and it doesn't mean that you're not healed. It means that there's layers. That means that you're getting things from other angles, that we're multidimensional, that we're fractal in how
Mm-hmm.
we hold energy in our body, that things are interrelated. Like I said, many different traumas or accidents that are interrelated can be in the body in all kinds of ways. That an entry point may be here or an entry point may be here, and you may revisit that, a piece of that trauma and something else in one technique release.
Yeah.
And so
And
it's
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 never,
interesting.
like you said, it's never like the one thing, right? It's like, let's say, like, let's just take a car accident, for instance, right? So there's a trauma of a car accident in your body. And it's like, okay, so then there's you saw it coming, right? Because you often see that there's that split second when you see it. And then there's the felt in the body. And then there's oh, this person was at fault, or this, like, there's all these different layers. This is just one little trauma. Well, it might
Mhm.
not be little, but one trauma.
One in
And
many.
there's all these different layers to just that, right?
Mhm.
And then what if you've been in another car accident before? It wasn't the same, but it was, you know, a different car accident, and maybe a little bit different circumstances, and so then that layers on top of that. So then you've got, but then what if you were almost in a car accident? And then so then you've got that. trauma that layers on top. And that's exactly what it is. And as we go through life and we've accumulated these things, and we can pinpoint and say, oh, well, yeah, my dad was a sociopathic narcissist. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Mhm.
But there's so many layers to what that actually meant to my nervous system,
Right,
right? To
exactly.
my body, to
Yeah.
and so as I go through, and yeah, so I don't speak to him. Yes, that's a safety component. I don't, I've healed this piece and I've healed this piece, and but every time there's going to be something different that we start to
Mhm.
peel back a little bit more, and because it's all intertwined. So oh yeah, I'm done with this piece. Oh, but it's connected to this piece, and I'm not done with the connection piece. And
Mhm.
on we go, and on we go, and on we go. And that's why there's no one and done, because we
Right.
are multidimensional. And there's so many things that happen at any given moment, let alone any given hour, day,
Mhm.
week, year, right? So, yeah, we can't have a one and done. We can just
Mhm.
get better and better at working through whatever comes up for us. We have new tools in the toolbox. We release
Mhm.
more in our body. And
Mhm.
over time, it gets easier and easier. But yeah, if we were done, why are we here? Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say that you can't move through things and have like take on newer lessons in it. I'm at the point now where I'm kind of going like, you know, yes, I'm learning things all the time, but it's more of, I feel more like it's a teaching versus learning a lesson. And it's an experiential teaching. And I feel more like I'm more on board with it. Like, oh, what will this experience teach me? What will
Mm,
I learn in this? I think we do get to that point in our soul's evolution as human beings where it's almost like you could live like instead of repeating lifetimes on the karmic wheel, you could probably have like 30 lives in one, if you're diligent and you're wanting to move through stuff,
mm.
and and the other thing too is like everybody has a different experience. Everybody is here doing a different experience. There may be people here that contracted to not get it this time, to not move anything.
And to help
Maybe they're
you
just here
get
to
it.
help, yeah, so
Yeah.
help you to be in present in someone else. Like maybe they're just here to have an easy life because they're resting, or I mean, we don't know.
Hmm.
We just don't know, which I think kind of leads into like we get to let go of judgment of other people's experiences in relation to our own, where we do this thing of like competition is really something in our culture where I'm either doing it better than this person or I'm like, I must be doing something wrong because that person has something better. Stop comparing yourself to someone else. Just be in
Hmm.
your own experience and get curious. Just be curious. If my mother used to say something all the time. It's like, I don't care about anybody else. I only care about you and what's going on with you. It's like, mind your own business. And there's, Wayne Dyer, whatever, Wayne Dyer used to say, whatever anyone thinks about you is not your business. And that's that when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that is the best thing that
I say
anyone
that
could
one
say to
all the
me right
time.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my business what somebody thinks about me. It's going to influence how I act, especially if I'm someone that's trying to be a people pleaser and like, squish myself into a little box because I don't want to offend anybody, right?
Hmm.
So, and like think about the lessons being an artist where you're, always working on speaking your truth and, it's like what a perfect setup.
So true. It is so
What a
true.
perfect setup. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I just wanted to, there's a couple of, oh, and there's a few more coming in. Just hellos from Michelin, Miss D, Elaine, I'm here. I kept trying. Oh, yes, the time change. Hello, a nice conversation you have, Deborah. Can you do a punch like boxing? I'm not sure what she means by that. Can you expand on that? Deborah, can you do a
Yeah.
punch like boxing? Punch through. Maybe it was delayed from something we said. I'm not sure. And
Okay.
Carol, I've stopped trying to rescue others and also see as I change myself to a higher vibration, others are changing a little too. Oh yeah,
Yep.
they
And
have to, right?
energy changes energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Energy change. I remember that like early
Yeah.
on hearing that expression, energy changes energy. I'm like, that is fascinating to me, you know?
It's one of the reasons a lot of people like when as they start to move forward in there and they're worrying, not worrying, they're working on themselves
Mm-hmm.
and their vibration changes, and then the vibration changes outward, and then
Mm-hmm.
people start to give you pushback, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can continue or you can step back,
Yeah.
right? And that's why we have a lot of people that go back and forth, myself included. I've done it many times. And,
Mm-hmm.
because the vibration changes and then other people start to feel it and they get panicky because their comfort is now being affected and you
Mm-hmm.
haven't said or done anything to them. It's
Yeah.
your vibration that's coming out. And yeah, and you have to get used to, I think, no, not I think, I know, you have to get used to with healing work that things are going to change and you have
Yeah.
to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that is such a great point too, because as our vibration changes, yes, we're attracting we're magnetizing ourselves to something different, right? Something energetically aligned with us. And then the things that are not energetically aligned do fall away. And sometimes that's relationships. And I
Hmm.
can say that without a doubt that my first marriage is definitely was my first marriage and broken up because of the work I was doing to heal. Because if I stayed broken, he knew what he could do. He knew who he was in that relationship, but he
Hmm.
didn't know what to do, that I was getting stronger, that I was becoming confident, that I was standing in my power. Every time I would come home from a session I was working with a woman doing core belief work at the time. It was like, it was uncanny. I literally would walk through the door and something would be wrong and we'd have a fight. And I was trying to, like, because you have that, what, 24 to 40 72 hours where she would always tell me, like, don't get into an argument, don't make any decisions, drink lots of water, get plenty of rest, treat yourself
Hmm.
like a queen. And I was like, as soon as I get in the doorway, boom, something big would be happening. So I was like, wow, this is so interesting, because he would sense a shift. He would
Hmm.
say what he was feeling was a loss of control or a loss of power, because the more you assume your own power, well, someone's going to feel that loss. And so that's where it's like, well, that's where all the fun started in that relationship, because it got really rocky,
Hmm.
because it's almost like there's not, this marriage isn't big enough for the two of us, sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
see that in other relationships too, like sisters, that kind of stuff, siblings, that if one was always the dominant one and one was always like taking the power, the minute the other sibling starts to assume their own power, it starts a huge problem in the
Hmm.
family dynamic.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It, any relationships you have, right? It's going to alter the relationship in some way. And the other person, it's subconscious to them, right?
Hmm.
The other person has the choice to move with you or not. And then we have the choice to either shrink back or keep going.
Hmm.
And that's where we get that cha-cha, where we go back and forth and back and forth. And it's the energy. We don't do it consciously. It's the
Hmm.
energy of things shifting. Oh shit.
Yeah.
And then we
And I
shrink
think
back.
that's perfectly okay, because we have to acclimate, and people around us have to acclimate to those shifts. And
Mm,
yeah, it's I think we get to be gentle with ourselves there when we're doing the cha-cha,
mm,
because that is part of that process, of acclimation, of, integration, and getting used to yourself in a different way. I can remember, like, because I was doing that subconscious core belief work, it was so magical. I would have times where I'd be like interacting with somebody and I would notice I would react differently. And after the conversation, I'd be like, wow, did that actually come out of my mouth? Like, who was that? And it was so, it wasn't all the time, but on the bigger things, So I'm like, oh,
mm,
man, this stuff is really like amazing stuff, because you're getting it on the subconscious. You can't talk your way through it. You can't bargain your way through it. Reading a book about it isn't going to help. I mean, it gives you the language and it gives you the understanding. It starts to open up your mind, but you have to have the experiential work. You just have to.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes back to the book smart versus street smart, unless you have experiences, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I think, something that we're learning in the online world. You can have
Mm.
all the degrees in the world, and I'm 100% for education. Don't get me wrong. I love learning, love it. But you can
Hmm.
have all the degrees in the world. That doesn't teach you the experience. And until
Hmm.
you've experienced it, you don't know. And so you
Hmm.
have to have that experience. I'm just looking at the time though. Is there any final thoughts we have on presence, which was our topic today that us,
Wow. What time
we
is it?
wander,
Oh, my
we
man.
wander.
Well, you can't not talk about presence and not, well, you can't talk about presence and not talk about healing
Yes.
because a lot of the reason that we are not present is because of some sort of unresolved trauma in our
Mhm.
system. When I say system, I'm talking the entirety, the whole enchilada, energy, belief, physical, all of that. And yeah, so it's cool to see where we navigated through. But I
Mhm.
think the biggest thing I'd love to leave people with is just really, really, if you can just be gentle with yourself, get out of comparing yourself, allow yourself to do the work at your own pace, and know that it's an evolutionary process, that it's okay to check out, it's okay to not be present all the time, but know when you're supposed to be, know when you
Mhm.
need to be. And it's not about forcing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. And I know for my own self, when I'm not as present, it's when my system is on overload, right? Like
Hmm.
usually in the evenings, I've just had things going on all day and it's just like, whoa. And so it's just like, what can I do to self-care through those things instead of checking out completely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Getting on
And
social media or
yeah.
games or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My way of checking out isn't that. My way of checking out is daydreaming. So then I go, like, that's not a bad checkout because
Oh, that's not a bad checkout. Yeah.
that's not a bad checkout. I love to daydream. It's where I get a lot of my inspiration for my work.
Mm,
So it's like I like to build that into my day.
so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Great reminders. Lane says she's sorry she wasn't here for the whole thing. She'll watch the replay. Oh yeah, because of the time change. Yes, it's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. That dang time
Yeah.
change. I'm sure it messed a lot of people up.
So and then we changed weeks on top of it. So it was the whole thing. We were a week
Right.
early.
Yeah.
And so as we wrap up, do you want to tell everybody if you've got anything upcoming, anything? Yeah, you've been doing some
Yeah.
one-to-one stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of one-to-one hands-on work here at the lodge, and it's really magical how that's unfolding. I haven't really done any advertising or talking about it. People are just kind of crawling out of the woodwork. So talk about alignment, right? It's really, I'm offering now healing retreats, personal healing retreats here in Sedona, which is what I was doing before the whole COVID miracle
Hmm.
thing happened. So I'm back to doing that now. I have some space left in my calendar. And so if that's something that interests you, that you want to even find out about it, just go to cosmicdreaminglodge.com and there's information there, and you can book a call to if you're really interested to come out to Sedona and do some in-depth work. It's really, we do shamanic work, we do work out in the vortexes here, we do some outside work, we do a lot of hands-on work, and we do creative expression work too. And it's just tailored right for what you need. So
Hmm.
I'm really excited to be doing that again. And that to me is like creating a lot of joy.
Well, you can feel the energy in that. And Carol says, yes, and thank you. Love this session today. And
Awesome. Yeah.
Creative You, we've got all sorts of things changing. It's been
Yeah.
quite a 2 months ago, I was like, yeah, the two, I don't know. We're going to keep juggling. I don't see how we are going to mix. And we're in the middle of rebranding. We will be the Heart Centered Academy. We are bringing the business and the healing together. We want to go deeper. We want to work with people like at a deeper level because that's where we've been shifting. It's not that we want to, we are. And
Yeah.
that's where we're shifting. And creativity is an important tool that we use, but it's not our main focus. And
Hmm.
so we will continue to use that tool. We still use it on the business side, and we still do creative things on the business side as well. So as we bring it all together, so we plan to launch. towards the end of April, because we, of course, we're also switching platforms for extra fun. And so there's a lot of things happening, but it's super exciting. And the energy is just like, it feels so right. As
Hmm.
this last year, we've just been trying to like figure it out, and it just kept bumping its head,
Yeah.
bumping my head, really, let's be honest. And
Yeah.
it's all unraveling now. So yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
exciting. Very
It
exciting.
is. And I can hear it in your voice too, that and you can see it, in your
Hmm.
field, that, it's lighting you up in a way
Yeah.
that we get to do that in our businesses too. So before I go on another track, I'm not gonna, but it's very visible that, you're in,
As is yours, right? When
you're
things
finding
start to move in
alignment.
alignment,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a, and it's, I think the resistance was, oh, like all the work and all this and all, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, but now that I've just let go, and it's like everything's actually just been unraveling. And yes, there's going to be some work, but there's always some work. I've been working really hard at keeping the two things going separately.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
gonna get easier.
going to get easier. So I want to thank everyone for being here
Yeah,
today, and look at all
thank
the
you.
comments. When we give you the okay, you don't need to comment, just doodle.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see all the comments. So
Yeah, so hopefully you
um,
guys got some good doodling done.
yes. So thank you, everyone. And we will be back the third week in April, I believe. Yes,
Hmm.
because we moved it this month, but we're back at regular time next month. So we will see you then.